Have you ever experienced a specific belief or a train of thought that just seems endless? It's almost like the treadmill in your brain that just keeps going on and on and on and on. And it takes so much energy out of you. It might be something along the lines of how my life would be so much better if dot, 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 dot. And then you take that dot, 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 and you run away. Your mind runs away with it. Or maybe it's a specific belief of if only things were like this, or if only people viewed me as this, my life would be completely different. There are so many different manifestations of what I call getting stuck. That's what we're going to talk today. Today, we're going to discuss getting stuck in your own thoughts. I'm Daniel Ifra here on the SaneStorming Show, where we sanestorm ways, not brainstorm, but sanestorm ways together to keep each other sane in a complex world. So we're talking here about something that is not what's classified as some sort of diagnosis, clinical diagnosis in the DSM, nor is it something that has a common terminology that people refer to it as, yet it's something that is extremely pervasive, and I see it all the time. And not only that, I see that it's can be so responsible and such a core component of times when people are not moving forward in their life. It may be they're not moving forward in their daily productivity. It might be they're not even moving forward with therapy, and they just feel like they've plateaued. And a lot of that boils down to this idea of when people get what I call people getting stuck in their own head, and you can get stuck in all types of themes. How many times, if we were just to say to ourselves, you know something, there's a bigger picture here. I know this is a problem. I know this is an issue, this specific thing in my life, but you know what? Let me work with what I have. Let me put this aside. Let me do what I can. How many times, if we were to inject that into our daily lives, into our own struggles, would we actually come out stronger and more accomplished? Many, many times. In fact, I would say that a lot of the times, with a lot of the periods in our life that we fall into despair, and a lot of those times are really, at the end of the day, it's because we're stuck in our own head. Now, there can be so many different angles and so many different manifestations of this stuckness. I'm going to give you a couple examples. I had a fellow in the office some time ago, and basically he was very, very fixated on the fact that had he married somebody else, his life would be perfect. And why didn't he marry the right person? Now, there's a clinical way to kind of categorize that. You can look at it that, well, maybe he's just obsessive compulsive, he's OCD'd. But it wasn't really, the nature of that specific case was not an OCD process. It was simply he was stuck in his own head. And that impacted so many different avenues. Like, what's the point of me really doing this kind of work and making money and supporting this family when I really could have been living the life that I really wanted to live with and sharing it with somebody that I really, really wanted to share it with? Or, look at how it drives me crazy how I live in this neighborhood when really I don't belong here. Or let's take something else. Let's move a little bit more to the clinical side here. I'm somebody with a lot of anxiety. I have a lot of anxiety. Anxiety is something that plagues me. I need help for my anxiety. And when I go to get my anxiety, I don't really feel that my therapist is really getting me because I am so anxiety ridden, and I don't think they understand the extent of it. And as a result of that, I can't do many, many things that I really, really want to do. And that's something that is playing over my head again and again and again and again because I need to take care of this anxiety. This anxiety is plaguing me. Right there, that individual, if I were to be able to press pause, that person is stuck. They're stuck about how anxious they are. Person can be anxious, But the fact that they're so consumed that everything boils down to, why am I feeling this way? Why am I not getting better? Why is nobody understanding me? And it's all because of this theme of, I'm having this extra dose of anxiety that nobody really understands. That is called getting stuck. Getting stuck is when you find a specific theme that seems to be taking your life over, that you're talking about and that you're thinking about a lot, and you're blaming that theme for so many things. That's what I call getting stuck in your head. And it's sometimes you don't even realize it's happening because it becomes your reality. It becomes your reality that this is something that I struggle with it, which is true, right? I'll give you an example. I don't have my car today because it's at the mechanic. So now a lot of things pop up today during the day that makes life difficult for me because I don't have access to the vehicle that I usually do. Right? Is that called I'm stuck? No, that's just a fact. That's just a reality. That's an inconvenience. That's not called getting stuck. It is called getting stuck, however, if I know I have to be without a vehicle for 2 weeks for whatever the reason might be, and every day I find myself pondering the fact that I don't have a vehicle, and I'm not brainstorming necessarily just practical ways of getting to work and back from work. I'm fixated on the fact that I don't have a vehicle. My life is in chaos. I cannot possibly be efficient with the tools that I have right now. That is when you take a situation and you sort of like up at a level that it comes from just being what it is to getting stuck in it. And when you up that level and you cross over to getting stuck in something, it's a whole different ballgame. Whatever you're going to do, whatever you would have done when it was just a problem, problems have solutions. They may not be perfect solutions, but they're options. There are ways of working around it. But when I'm stuck in something, it makes almost every solution untouchable. Almost every solution is out of reach. It's almost like I can't even bother because this is such a catastrophic and prevalent and overall issue that's so enveloping. There is not one specific workaround that's really going to help me. And that's the danger of getting stuck. The danger of getting stuck is that I'm no longer able to problem solve because I'm stuck. I'm invested. I'm invested in my anxiety. I'm invested in my life circumstances. I'm invested in the fact that I'm struggling with one of my children. And my life has to be on pause now, or it feels like it needs to be on pause. And the reality is, like I said earlier, if we were able to take 3 steps back and say to ourselves, hang on a second, these are the cards that were dealt with me. These were the cards that I were dealt. There's only certain things that I can do in this situation. I need to differentiate between what I do have control of, what I do not have control of. And I need to take this as another challenge in my life and be able to continue the best productivity that I can despite this challenge. Our lives would be a completely different ballgame. Because what we're doing there is we're not making ourselves one with whatever challenge that we have. It's not part and parcel of who we are. It's a circumstance that has gotten in the way that we need to be able to work on and we need to be able to distance ourselves from in a certain sense. Sometimes it's so hard to do. Sometimes it's easier than others. I got that. But at least recognize when something has become a theme, when something has seemed to have taken us over, has really transformed us from an issue or a problem that's workable and that's solvable, or that's we can redirect our response to, versus something that's bigger than us and it's something that we are completely helpless. We became victims. There is nothing that we can do about this. Or even if there are a couple things that we can do, they probably really won't help anyways. If this echoes some truth for you, then you may be getting stuck. And if you're getting stuck, you're actually putting yourself in prison, so much more so than the actual challenge and problem began. And I know hearing it and thinking about it sometimes invokes, well, like, this fellow doesn't really get me. He doesn't really understand how important this is. And I know what that feeling can be like. And I'm not saying that it's true. I don't necessarily get everybody's individual circumstances. You're the only ones you individual out there. You're the only one that's experiencing this level of distress by this difficult circumstance. But is it becoming part of you, or is it my life a life that can still continue with some sort of productivity and some sort of sense of success and some sense of doing the very, very best I can versus I'm just shutting down because I'm on system overload. Just to give you an example, sometimes we get so stuck, there's a famous analogy of getting stuck in the forest it's the leaf in the forest, right? We can be looking at a leaf and we look at all the different, and we're not seeing the forest. We're not seeing the other things in our lives that can be sources of joy and sources of encouragement and accomplishment and inspiration, because we're so fixated on that one thing that's weighing on our heads tremendously. And it makes sense to us why it's weighing on our heads. And we get it. We understand, it feels so right to do that sometimes. It feels like nothing else can work as long as this one thing is plaguing me. But the reality is that is a manifestation of our thought process and not of the reality. Almost most of the time. The reality is not that way. So here we are with so many of us finding ourselves getting stuck. And number one, we need to identify when that's happening. Number two, what do we do when we need to move ahead and we need to move forward and it's just not working? So I want to suggest a couple of following tips. Number one is you got to realize that almost most things that we've dealt with in our past, we've felt this before. We felt this before and we have moved on, either because time has let us move on or because circumstances changed. But the reality is that most of the challenges that we've had in the past in our lives seem to change courses, whether it's in perspective, whether it's in actual facts on the ground. We have to be able to pull away and take a step back and tell ourselves, I know it feels like it's here and it's stuck with me forever, but that's not the track record that's been shown in the past when it comes to most things. And that's true with most things. Again, I say most. Second thing is, we got to realize that when we are stuck in our own heads, a lot of the problem becomes because we take our thoughts, we take the thoughts in our head and we take them and we turn them into almost like a reality. We put so much investment in our beliefs, so much investment in our thoughts, and our brain is not meant to do that. We have no idea. If we were to count how many thoughts pass by the average human brain per day, you're talking about well up into the upper hundreds, close to 1,000 of thoughts. And most of them, I would say 90% of them, even more, 90 to 95% of them are completely just exactly that. They're just thoughts. They have no meaning. They have no reality to them. It's just because our brain was created to be a thought machine. And our job is to learn how to kind of sift through this thought machine, let what is not helpful pass by and just go with it and learn how to catch the few things that we need to catch in order to enhance our lives and make them productive. So really, a big part of being a thinking person is knowing when to let go and which thoughts are not going to be helpful and which thoughts are just there simply because my brain just created it. I see so often how people put so much investment in anything their brain comes up with. And that can be so worrisome and so dangerous because we all have thoughts. Some of our thoughts are not at all realistic. I'm sure we all have thoughts that we would never dare to tell the person who's sitting next to us, no matter how close they are to us, because they're wacky and they're far-reaching and they make absolutely no sense. But the fact remains that we have to be able to call it for what it is. A thought is exactly that. A thought is a thought. Once we put it to the next level that this thought became somewhat of a reality, we crossed over. So what I say is, if you can practice this on a very, very small level, find yourself when you're getting stuck in anything. See, can I take a 5-minute break? Can I just pull away and focus on something else for 5 minutes, something more productive? Can I focus on something that's going to impact me in the short term, not something monumental? Can I just sit with my child for the next 3 minutes and engage something that has nothing to do with what was bothering me and just live in that precious moment right now? When you do that, what you're doing is you are practicing getting unstuck. You're not allowing the thoughts of your brain to take hold and to absolutely dictate to you where you're going to put your energy and where you're not going to put your energy. We're going to talk a lot more about getting stuck because this is something that I believe is so much a part of how people struggle, why people are in therapy and they're getting treated for the presentation. But so often it's not really the presentation that's causing that amount of distress. It's the getting stuck in that presentation is the problem. And I think all too often that's overlooked. So here we are trying to make that difference. I hope this was helpful. Please join me in future podcasts and the SaneStorming Show. Thanks for listening. Hope to see you again soon.